future of food is indeed female. Thank you so much, Anastasia, for hosting this conversation. It is a super important topic, and I can tell you one of my great joys about the food tech sector is actually that there are so many female founders compared to other tech sectors where there are virtually none. So this makes me hopeful about this. Okay, so. We now move over to the next phase here, and we have Chris Albrecht and Victoria Roos. Victoria, are you here somewhere? Victoria is also online, perhaps.
Yes, I'm
okay.
online.
Yeah, you are both online. That's lovely. Okay, folks. So this is super cool. So Chris, you're dialing in, in the wee hours of the morning, I assume, from somewhere far west in the U.S. And Victoria, I don't know where you are.
I'm in Abu Dhabi at the World Chef Congress.
Oh my God! So these are international guests of honor that we have here. So the topic today is robots and Victoria, we start with you. You're Open Innovation Lead at Electrolux Professionals. So you're providing, of course, the world with all the world of chefs with all the professional equipment that they need. And Chris, you're like the master of the universe, at least the publisher of Automate, the one and only newsletter about automation and robots in the food system. At least the only one that you'll ever need to read, that's for sure. In any case, what are we seeing out there when it comes to robots and automation in the world of food? I'm super curious. Shall we start with you, Chris? What
Sure.
do you see?
Well, thank you for having me, Tusen Talk. I appreciate it. We're seeing robots. We're at an interesting point with robots in food, right? Like they're not yet at scale, so you don't see them all around the world yet and on streets every day. But the technology is there, and so you have autonomous delivery robots. You've got autonomous restaurant robots moving food in and out of kitchens to tables. In Sweden, actually, in Stockholm, I just wrote about this morning, you have a robot ice cream shop called Bonbot, I think. And you're actually starting off with Teraki to do autonomous robot delivery there as well. So all this is to say that we're at an interesting point in it, whereas it's no longer just sort of research and development. We're in sort of early stages, pre-scale, but post, prototyping.
Is that what you see too, Victoria?
Yes, I agree. There are so many exciting things happening out there and in different areas. And I do think one interesting view on this is to see not only what's technological, feasible, but where these kind of solutions actually add value to the current processes. And I think, at least also from what I hear from the hospitality industry, is that there is a huge lack of manpower. I mean, we see we're talking about the Great Resignation in the US, but this is something we do see on a global scale. And this is also a driver behind this. And then I think we need to think also, where does this add value? Like, what operations could potentially be replaced in order also to attract the workforce, because the new generation that needs to come up and join the industry do also have other kind of demands. So I think there are potential tasks that are not only boring, but that could also be very stressful, that could be potentially also dangerous if you're thinking about the environment in the kitchen, that could be replaced and automated in order to make the environment more ergonomic and more sustainable for the operators.
I think this is so cool, because a couple of years ago, if you'd asked a chef then, so what do you think about robots in kitchens? They was like, oh no, it's Antichrist, and we cannot have that. But we need to have the power of the people in the kitchen. And suddenly you say that, okay, we sell kitchen equipment to all these people who a couple of years ago thought that, but now they're actually also craving robots. How fast do you think this shift has gone?
Well, in some areas it's quicker than in others, and then it's also to see where you actually implement the solutions like this. I know, Chris, I'm following you as well, and there are so many examples from different geographical regions as well. I do think you need to find the right context for these kind of solutions, geography-wise, but also in the right location where you're at. What do you say, Chris?
Okay.
Well, I think we're at sort of the pilot phase, right? So you see a company like Miso Robotics, which makes Flippy, which is an automated frying station. They've announced deals with a number of, here in the US, well-known restaurant brands, White Castle, Chipotle, Jack in the Box, Inspire Brands, which is Buffalo Wild Wings. But most of those are sort of still in the pilot phase. It's only been White Castle that's announced it's going to add 100, or it's going to use up to 100 robots, 100 Flippies, right? And Wing Zone announced that future build outs will have all their future restaurants will be standardized to have Flippy, but those are still really small numbers, right? This gets back to the pandemic and labor shortage has certainly increased, and I think where you're going to see that the most is actually in server robots, right? Because these are basically like autonomous racks on wheels, right? And they work. All you need to do to set them up. You don't have to change your workflow really is map your restaurant for the robot. And then the robot just goes back and forth between the kitchen. And that solves a big problem, right? Because human servers don't have to carry around big trays of food anymore, and they can focus on customer service. And so it saves on wear and tear. And they're easy to set up, right? So they're easy and affordable. And what you're seeing here in the US is that these server robots aren't just happening with big chains. They're actually happening with mom and pop shops all around the country. So you can see that it's sort of this barbell, if you will. There's interest at the top. You see Denny's and Chili's experimenting with them, but also a groundswell at the bottom. So you're seeing sort of both of these sides come up for restaurant server robots in particular.
And where will this lead us? But let me ask, I wouldn't call it the leading, but a hypothesis, and that is actually when the robots take over the kitchen, will we eat different things then? Because robots are better at cooking certain things than humans, and humans are better at certain things than robots. So will this change our diets?
Well, I think the important thing to remember is I think a lot of people hear robots in restaurants and then they suddenly immediately shift to, oh, robots are coming for every job, right? And that's just not the case. What you want to think about with robots is what are high traffic areas where people want decent food quickly? And that's where you're going to see most of the adoption, right? So you think airports, train stations, universities, office buildings, right? Like places where you don't necessarily need high cuisine. You're always going to have, your handmade pizzas or, your favorite restaurant with your cooks, human cooks, right? They're not going to replace everything, but they will provide better food and more available in areas that aren't available now. And I think that's really the thing to consider. Robots aren't rising up and coming for everybody. But they're going to have very specific use cases where you're going to be thankful that they're around just because they operate 24 hours a day. So if you're at an airport at 4 o'clock in the morning, you can get, I don't know why you would want a pizza at 4 o'clock in the morning, but you can get, a latte or, a fresh baked pastry or something like that.
Okay,
And if I could add on that, another interesting thing that I see is also how the plant-based trend continues to intertwine with the 3D printing, for instance. If we talk automation on a larger scale, you see IKEA printing 3D printing vegan meatballs. You see the fine dining segment with Markiplier White in London with the 3D printed steaks. If we're talking new ingredients, this is also how the technology can leverage that in order to get the right texture and to get the product that the consumer is asking for.
But let me ask you then, Victoria, because a couple of years ago you constructed equipment that was meant for humans to use, right? And suddenly you have to become a robotics company. What type of challenge is that for you?
Well, we're experts in in kitchen solutions, so we're not a robotics company. But of course, you need to look at where, as I mentioned in the beginning, where these kind of technologies and these kind of automations could add value. And then I'm thinking again. We were talking back office and the sustainability for the kitchen operators, but you can also talk front end. It opens up for many possibilities.
Okay, lovely. So, I mean, we don't have any more time now. This is a short conversation, but I hope it will turn into longer conversations with all of you out there simply by starting to subscribe to Automate newsletter. Please do, it's excellent. And then also to start thinking about new processes in the kitchen and ask Electrolux professionals how they can help you do that. Thank you very much, Victoria and Chris, for joining us today. Take
Thank
care
you.
and have a great
Thank
day.
you for having me.
Bye-bye. And talking about Electrolux, where do we yeah, we have two over here. We have the other part of Electrolux. So I don't